Joe Manganiello has been a fan of fantasy since the very beginning, and this is the Hobbit record that got both him and I hooked on the genre. Luckily, I still own mine. So I talked to him about what he loves about fantasy, what he enjoys about playing D&D, and what brought him back to the game.
There's two real components to playing a character in this game, and one of them are the game mechanics. So every character plays differently. If you play a bard and you cast inspiration on someone in the party, you have to sing. So it's really fun forcing, like for example in Force Grey, forcing a comedian like Brian Posehn, who's very flat and has a voice like this, making him sing. You know, most of his bardic songs of inspiration are, you know, Metallica power chords and a couple of lines of like a rap song, which is like really funny, and that's him. But you know, last night you had Marisha Ray in our adventure with Mike Merles singing to my Manticore, singing like old school rap songs, which, you know, it's funny. So the shirt or the jacket fits people differently, which is fun. So there's that part of it, and there's also understanding the numbers and understanding the math of the game, because, you know, each character has certain abilities and certain mathematical outcomes to push the game into a different direction. And that's, I think, really what's unique and fascinating. For example, like I'm a huge Critical Role fan. I watch Critical Role every week, and Critical Role is a group of fantastic actors who are improvising a book, a novel, a fantasy novel that unfolds in front of you. Oh, and then they roll dice in the middle. And depending on those numbers and those dice, it can throw the story into some wild direction that they have to be nimble enough to take into that direction, which is where there's an electricity, there's a live energy to it that you really can't get in a video game. I was a little kid that was exposed to dragons and wizards and dwarves and elves for the first time by my little Hobbit picture book, record book, the kind where you used to turn the pages and it would chime when it told you it was time to turn. And I guess looking back, probably from that age, this belief or this want to believe that those things were real, I then sought out every single book of art involving dragons, monsters, etc. I knew that little Hobbit record was based on a real book, like an adult book without pictures, but I knew that I wasn't advanced enough at age 4 to read it. So it was almost like in the back of my mind, I was training myself to read that book someday. And when I was 8 years old, I started reading The Hobbit. And I remember there was a kid in my neighborhood who couldn't read yet. And so he would call me every night, and I would summarize to him everything I read in The Hobbit that day. And then that was kind of the gateway drug into Stephen King and Choose Your Own Adventure books. And then eventually I found the Dungeons and Dragons red box, like the basic red box set. Like that red box cover art was Larry Elmore, who also did all the artwork for the Dragonlance novel. So, you know, I was a huge fan of his. And then that kind of led into like Frank Frazetta and Conan and then comic books. You know, comic books and graphic novels, I think, sort of came out of that fountainhead as well. It was like all things fantasy. Like there was an alternate reality that was way more interesting than the one that I was living in, and I wanted to go live in that as much as possible, or have my brain live in that as much as possible. And I think that that's probably at the heart of, you know, the profession that I chose, 100%. And I would play that solo adventure in the book, which is kind of sad. I would play that solo adventure over and over and over again because I didn't know any other kids that played. Because, you know, in today's world, there's the internet. You can get on the internet, you can find all those kids. It's really mainstream culture now, but back then it was underground and it was hard to find. And it wasn't something that was really socially accepted to talk about either. Being a nerd, being a D&D guy. But eventually I found a group of kids who were into Dragonlance, and I became addicted to those novels and started playing AD&D through Dragonlance with all those kids. And you know, I loved it. I started writing, I started creating, I got into other tabletop games, and for a good solid, you know, 10 or so years just DM'd and wrote adventures and painted characters and drew characters, and I would skip doing homework so I could get back to creating, building my worlds out, and funny enough, you know, today I'm a writer and a producer and an actor and an author, and a lot of the skills that I use in whether it's building a character as an actor or optioning a novel, converting that novel to a script and building out what a miniseries or what a first season of a TV show would be, or even understanding a script and the arc of the storyline of a script. They were all things that I was working out as a kid while I was game mastering and dungeon mastering these big adventures. It was, for me, it was like producing or being a showrunner for a show without $100 million. I mean, as a kid. And so all of those skills are completely applicable. And looking back, I know that I picked my career path because it was my first love.
Thank you, Joe, for being on the show. My wife Megan and I are starting a brand new D&D live stream show on Twitch called This Dragon Life. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. It is going to be a Norse-themed campaign that I've been working on for a really long time, but it's firmly set in the D&D multiverse. We've got a great cast of characters. I'm very excited to start live streaming our D&D home game, and I hope you check it out and subscribe to those channels. Thank you so much for watching.